Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hazmat Guys. This is episode 295. I'm Mike Monaco, and I'm here with Bobby. Hi, Bobby.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
I'm doing great. You're looking amazing.
Oh, you look phenomenal yourself. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Oh, yes. Seriously, 5 hours ago, got an overnight red-eye flight from the lovely cloudy state of California.
Yes, never sunny, always cloudy.
Yeah, it's I cannot say that my whole time. Every time I go out there, it's good. I came out with you, clouds.
I have a curse of going to California, and my curse is that it is always overcast or rainy. I do not get the sun. Maybe I'll get like a day or two of sun. Usually on the way back to the airport is when it's sunny. Yeah. And this trip was no exception. I mean, you want to talk about like the planes were taking off and they would go 100 feet in the air and punch into the clouds.
Yep. So, absolutely.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But we are exhausted. We're tired, but we are going to talk out this episode that actually before we do that, conferences?
Still the same. I think it's Massachusetts, Cold Zone, Virginia,
and Massachusetts
going live. Yeah, I think that rounds up the year, I believe.
And they coordinated it so that it all happened in the same week.
In the same day. So we're going to magically clone ourselves and send ourselves out to do all of it. But this was all right. So before we get into this thing, I do want to throw a shout out, which we sometimes do, to the people in the class that were with us yesterday. We are going to be talking about that class specifically, probably next week or the week after. In I think an interesting light.
Yeah, I think we can. I think we could talk about structure.
Yes, but the people in the class were amazing. James giving us a ride in his hoopty.
Yes, Montgomery. Thank you, buddy.
And
his old beat up pickup truck.
Oh my God! Dude, wash the thing.
Yeah, have some pride in what you ride.
Unbelievable, and all the other people, Brad and all those people. So it was a good time. People made it. Course, yeah, we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
I got to still digest it.
Next week, if you definitely want to hear about it, next week's the way to go.
So this was on the docket for last week when we were talking about the testing for the effectiveness of decontamination, and we just didn't have time.
Yeah, it was every once in a while I like to kind of look at the questions that people are asking on forums and social media and pull it apart and you and me kind of dissect and talk about it, because the forums, they become very one-dimensional. Answers are my mind's eye, your mind's eye, everything, those details get lost. So this is a good forum to sit and kind of like pick through the details.
Right.
And the question was asked, if an engine company or two in your department got dispatched to a tractor-trailer fire, and the... hold on a second. What do we have here? Oh, and the report that the driver is out and that he's carrying fertilizers, what would be your concern? And
nothing. Good job. Let's wrap it up.
Done. And there was a lot of really good answers. I learned some stuff from some people. I didn't realize that you could have such a devastation with a tractor trailer fire, but at the same time, I think that there are there's never that I would do this, because all of the details. So I figured let's run through what we would do at these different stages and throw out different, like, okay, well, what if we did this? How would that change our operation?
Well, again, in my eye, I know. All right, so this is what I know. Shooting from the hip, I really don't. I didn't look this up or anything like that, but the majority of your fertilizers are going to be some type of nitrogen-based compound.
Right.
That's the effectiveness of making things grow faster. Is the amount of nitrogen in the stuff, and so with nitrogen, and if you kind of are into building your own bombs, I'm sure you've learned up on this, but high nitrogen type things are beneficial for bomb making.
Yes.
And so unintentionally, let's say, I have a tractor trailer full of fertilizer, which is one of the main components of building a bomb. So you can go down that road and say, well, what if I got it? I would say just kind of, if I was to start a fire of the trailer compound itself, like the trailer itself, I would think that the majority of the fertilizer would melt and kind of like liquefy. Right.
Okay.
And I think the vapor production, and how do I know this? Because it has catting. The vapor production would be able to be thermally active, meaning that it could go on fire. And I'm also mostly sure that the pH and oxidizers that you would assume for a fertilizer of such, when you thermally activate it and heat it up and burn it, a lot of the parameters change.
Right.
So it might become acidic or basic. It might become an oxidizer when it wasn't before. It might not go on fire when it's not on fire, but when it does go on fire, the smoke and the products are on fire. So I wouldn't be running for the hills in the beginning.
Okay.
I don't think.
So this is where I turned around and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna assume the worst. I think probably the worst would be like an ammonium nitrate fertilizer.
Okay,
right?
fine.
Right, and even with the ammonium nitrate, right, we know that it can decompose at high temperatures. We know that it becomes sensitive and that it can undergo rapid decomposition and react with itself and essentially detonate or deflagrate.
Okay.
So right off the bat, I would be thinking, all right, that would be my worst case scenario. Now, without any other information as far as what this is, now I kind of have to go based upon my size up. And this was one of the things I was trying to get across to some of the people on there is like, okay, well, right, I don't just take a match to ammonium nitrate and it explodes, right? Like if we look at the Beirut, if we look at the West Texas, even if you look at the ship fire in Texas City, it takes a lot. Like it takes a lot. So I think the level of concern really very much like a propane tank fire, like a 331, right? My level of concern is going to be based upon my level of fire load. Where, you know, if I pull up to this thing and let's say it's the wheel wells that are on fire and there's a little bit of fire underneath the vehicle itself, but it's not really impinging into the cargo or it hasn't really had a chance to really fully engulf, I don't know if I'm going to be overly concerned about a detonation or some kind of a massive reaction. Whereas if I pull up and the thing is fully engulfed, I might be like, okay, what am I doing here? And then it starts to become that risk reward thing, right? Because now I have a fully engulfed tractor trailer fire. I have the potential of an explosion if it's ammonium nitrate. I'm going to take the worst case scenario, but am I out in the middle of a field or am I sitting next to an orphanage? You know, like it starts to become what would my non-intervention do versus what would my intervention do?
Right. But I mean, like, and again, I'm not looking at the ERG right now, but I think I would throw water.
How? Would we use a remote, right? And so this is where it starts to become tricky. And we talk about this when we do the Mad Libs, right? And we like change that one little detail and we start to change the whole operation. So like, what type of information are we looking to obtain when we throw out a question like this? What's its location? What is it actually carrying? What type of fire is it? How fully involved is the fire? Is there a life hazard? Is it fully loaded? Is it partially loaded? Is a fertilizer just a little bit of it? Like we could literally pick these details, and that's what I'm hoping to do. Like, let's pick a few details that lend us in one direction, and then pick a few details that lend us in a totally different direction.
Well, in my mind, I'm thinking about the standard box tractor trailer, like the regular run of the mill with 2 doors in the back, where you load pallets of junk in there, and that's what I'm thinking. Probably the most dangerous part of that is opening the doors.
Right.
So like when you're standing there clipping with bolt cutters, or I probably wouldn't use like a cutoff tool or a rotary saw, only because I don't want to be the spark. But I think cutters are okay, like bolt cutters. The problem is that when you have something with a mild, what we would consider very low pressure, not very low pressure, because somebody's going to call me out on that, low pressure, under 5 psi, those doors are like 4 foot by 8 foot. And when you put 3 pounds on every square inch of that door, that is an enormous amount of pressure. Like it'll move tanks.
And for those of you that are out there that are like, oh yeah, but that's ridiculous. Like they don't pressurize those cargo tanks, or not tanks. I shouldn't say tanks. They don't pressurize those cargoes, containers. Yeah, but you have to remember that if you have fire impinging on that, it is naturally heating up. There's naturally a pressure increasing.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes, and it's coming out through the vent holes or whatever, holes in the bottom of the rats and stuff come in and out of those trucks, those dirty little buggers. But, it's trying to vent. But when we cut that lock and we open that door up, we are going to have a problem. So, like, if it was to be done, that would be probably one of my biggest levels of concern, is that guy that's opening up that lever is fully aware that when that lever is popped, if it's difficult to open, it might not be because the door is a little out of ajar. It could be because there's a lot of pressure behind it.
Right.
And that thing swings open, and that guy's going to take a ride.
So at what point are you looking at the scene and you're saying, okay, I feel good enough to put somebody close enough in the position where we can open up the back of the door?
I would say, and again, this I guess is a mixture between chemistry and fireman, is that it would be the color of smoke, the intensity of the smoke, the texture of the smoke, and a general common sense accounting of how much fire impingement is either outside or what do I imagine is happening on the inside.
Yeah,
like, am I seeing the skin discolor because of excessive heat inside?
That's kind of exactly the road that I was going down. I think the combination of smoke and fire load is going to be the key here, right? Because if I have a lot of smoke, okay, that's great. I've got a lot of smoke. That means there's a lot of stuff in complete combustion, right? I do have some breakdown, but if I don't have, like, I'm imagining a blowtorch type effect before this ammonium nitrate like detonates. Like you have to have a mess. So I think I would be more concerned if I pulled up on scene and all I saw was flames. All I saw was fire impingement, and I saw very little actual smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be a hell of a lot more concerned than if I pulled up and there was a medium amount of fire and just tons of smoke pumping. Because to me, that fire is now in the cargo.
And concealing.
It's concealing it. It's consuming it. It's doing a full combustion, which means that you're getting high efficiency out of the reaction, right? There's plenty of heat going back into the reaction because you have a full, complete combustion. And I think that would lend for a lot more like, oh, let's sit back, let's throw water from a distance, or let's just, what are we saving?
Right. It's fertilizer.
It's fertilizer. And I think that lends back to the description of like, well, what is my surrounding area? Because even if I have just the littlest bit of concern, why am I going in there? Kind of like we listened to a lecture about a guy who had a fire in a battleship, right? Yes. And they were there for a couple hours. They weren't making any headway. And at some point he turned around and he goes, what the hell am I doing? Like,
it's just steel.
What am I saving? This is steel. This is not even like our property. Like, this is nonsense. I don't have enough to control this fire to begin with. I'm going to pull everybody out. Like, at some point, what are we saving? What are we looking to do? Save the chassis for what? A tow truck?
Right. The tractor is the important part. I think. I mean, like, I'm
which
thinking
is going to be destroyed anyway.
Yeah, I'm thinking the practical application of this thing is that, the tractor is the big part. Yeah, the load, the economics of that thing is a big deal. But I think a lot of it comes down to like the whole. I would read the smoke. Honestly, as the smoke color changes. And, if weird colors are coming off, I'd probably be more inclined to just say, hold back. I've heard people say, I'm going to punch a hole in the side of the thing. Good luck. I don't think it's as easy as you try to do it before you do it on the Insta snaps.
Even a crappy, wood truck trailer is not easy to punch through. Especially if you've got a fire load going on it. I don't know. Maybe a deck gun from a distance would rip the walls apart, after fire load. But I can't see it. And when I was first going through this, I was like, all right, like, whatever. You fight the fire. But I didn't realize that there were actual events in history in which this has happened, and the tractor trailer has detonated and actually exploded on scene. I would have assumed, I would have assumed when I was first making comments and first going through, I was like, all right, well, it's not a lot, and you can't really have that much of a fire load and all this stuff. And then, Dr. Baxter posted a whole thing in that thread about tractor trailer fires with ammonium nitrate fertilizer that have detonated on scene.
Wow, I'd like to see those things because, just to pick up the goods and the bads and the uglies of it, like what do they do good and what would they do bad? And I want to compare my notes to.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, all right, at what point, like, so that kind of changed my thought process. And I was like, wow, if this could happen, how would it happen? And it would happen under severe fire load, right? Like, you're not just going to get a tire fire and the thing's going to like spark and detonate. It has to be severe fire load in order for
tight confinement.
Tight confinement, but apparently even loose fertilizer, stuff that's just in bags or something like that, has the ability to do this under heavy fire load. It just all decomposes at once.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And that made me sit back and kind of like, all right, like, how would I approach this? Like, at what point wouldn't I go? At what point would I go? And should I even go at all? Should we be approaching, let's say it's something that we don't know. It's a tractor trailer fire that we don't know. Why are we putting water on it? Why are we doing anything? We're not saving the cargo. We're not saving the vehicle. We're not saving the trailer. We're putting ourselves in danger. We're going to be making a huge mess with all the water that we're pumping out. The only thing that we could possibly be doing is reducing the amount of toxic materials that gets in the air from a fire. But if we actually allow it to burn and burn completely, you're getting a lot less toxic stuff than if you were to try to put the fire out and let it smolder.
I'm going to say a lot of that is going to be we don't want to be the guys on YouTube that just stand there and watch a truck burn to the ground.
But when don't we do that? Like, especially after listening to this guy's lecture, yesterday, when do we say it's a no-go?
When the boss has the cojones to say we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And honestly, and he's thinking from, well, they're not going to respect me if I don't make the push. And I think there's going to be a couple of guys that are secretly hoping, boy, I hope he says not to do this.
Or just lacks the realization that I didn't realize that these things could detonate like that.
Yeah.
I had
probably
no idea.
A little education.
So, like, what, it reverts back to the I don't know what I don't know.
That category is getting big for us.
It's getting really, really big, and it's getting really, really frustrating because, like, you sit and you try to make an educated guess, and you're like, I didn't know that. If that were me on scene, I would have probably tried to put the fire out.
Right.
And because I would have been like, no, there's probably a minor chance of detonation. Like, it's fertilizer, whatever. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. Oh,
So, yeah. But now, does that mean, like, at what point do we turn around? So then, all right, this lends to the next question. Tractor trailer, fertilizer, great. What about a box store? Like like a True Value or a hardware store or a gardening supply store.
Oh, that's a whole nother game.
Like, not a storage facility for fertilizer, but still has fertilizer components in it and pretty significant amount.
Dude, even like small quantities of MAP gas, but in like just the chemicals, it's above household quantities, so it's like a concern.
Right. Actually, we had a Facebook message. Somebody wants us to do, the Father's Day fire.
Yes.
20 years ago. They want us to do a show on all of the things that were in that fire that contributed to that collapse. I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. Yeah, we got to do that. But where's the no? Like, that's what I would really love to know is, like, if there's anybody out there that has a concept when it comes to these fertilizers, when it comes to these fires, at what point should we be considering a no-go? Like, at fully involved, partially involved? Is it the smoke? Is it how hard it's pushing? Is it the structure? Is it the possible fire load? I don't necessarily think I can say I know for sure.
Yeah, me neither.